This story begins with a realization. If one clone could change his life, 1,000 different clones could change the world. Chapter 1. The Multiplication of One. The wooden floor of the academy classroom felt colder than usual against Naruto Uzumaki's palms. He sat slumped at his desk, staring at the hite, the forehead protector, resting on the table in front of Irika-sensei. It was so close he could see the light reflecting off the metal plate, yet it felt as distant as the moon. Naruto, Irika said, his voice a mix of pity and disappointment. You failed the clone technique. Again, you can't graduate with just a puddle of goo. Naruto looked at the clone beside him. It was a pathetic, translucent thing that looked like a melted candle with whiskers. It groaned a wet, pathetic sound before popping into a cloud of white smoke. I'm sorry, Irika-sensei, Naruto muttered, his usual boisterous energy replaced by a hollow ache in his chest. I practiced. I really did. It's just, the chakra feels like trying to thread a needle with a fire hose. He walked out of the room, the whispers of his classmates following him like stinging flies. Dead last. Failure. Can't even do a simple E-rank jutsu. The swing and the snake. Naruto spent the afternoon on the lone swing outside the academy. He watched families hugging their newly minted genin. He felt like a ghost, visible, but unable to touch the world everyone else lived in. That was when Mizuki-sensei approached him. Mizuki's smile didn't reach his eyes, but Naruto was too starved for kindness to notice the frost in the man's gaze. Naruto, Irika is tough on you because he wants you to succeed. Mizuki lied smoothly, leaning against the tree. But there's a secret way, a way to show everyone you're not just a failure. There's a scroll in the Hokage's residence, the Scroll of Seals. If you learn even one technique from it, you'll pass for sure. Naruto's eyes widened. A secret shortcut? It sounded too good to be true, which, in Naruto's experience, usually meant it was exactly what he needed. A secret scroll? Believe it. I'll do it. The heist and the discovery. Infiltrating the Hokage's office was surprisingly easy, partly because Naruto was a master of pranks and knew every blind spot in the village's security, and partly because the third Hokage was probably distracted by his research books. Naruto escaped to the woods, sweating and panting, the massive scroll strapped to his back. He rolled it out under the moonlight. Okay, let's see. The first one is Sado clone jutsu, Kakebun sin no jutsu. Naruto groaned, his head hitting the parchment. Another clone jutsu? The universe is mocking me. But as he read the instructions, something clicked. The standard academy clone was an illusion, a mere projection of light and chakra. It required delicate, microscopic control. The shadow clone, however, was a physical manifestation. It required a massive, violent shove of chakra to split the user's essence. Wait, Naruto whispered, his blue eyes darting across the text. It's not about being delicate. It's about being... He spent hours in the clearing. He didn't just practice the hand sign. He visualized his chakra not as a needle, but as a roaring river being diverted into two channels. Poof! A solid, breathing Naruto stood before him. Whoa! Both Narutos said in unison. They poked each other's cheeks. You're real. I'm real. A manic, goofy grin spread across Naruto's face. If he could make one, could he make more? He looked further down the scroll, his eyes catching snippets of other names. Multi-shadow clone. Elemental clones. Memory feedback. The betrayal. The sound of rustling leaves cut through his excitement. Irika appeared, looking frantic and wounded. Naruto, give me the scroll. Mizuki is coming. Then came the whistle of giant shuriken. Mizuki emerged from the shadows, his face twisted into a mask of malice. He told Naruto the truth about the nine-tailed fox, the reason the village hated him, the reason he was a monster. Naruto felt the world tilt. The coldness he'd felt at the academy returned, 10 times worse. He felt like a vessel for a demon, a trick played on the village. But then Iruka spoke. He's not the fox spirit, Iruka sobbed, pinned to a tree by a kunai. He is Naruto Uzumaki of the Hidden Leaf. He works hard, and he knows the pain of being alone. He's my student. Naruto, hiding behind a tree, felt something ignite. It wasn't the fox's rage, it was a sudden, brilliant clarity. If he was a monster who could create life from thin air, then he would be the most crowded monster in history. The 1,000-man army. Naruto stepped out from behind the tree, his hand formed into the cross sign. If you ever lay a hand on my sensei, Naruto said, his voice dropping an octave, I'll kill you. Mizuki laughed, a jagged, ugly sound. And what can a failure like you do? You couldn't even make one illusionary clone. Naruto smirked. It was a sharp, intelligent expression that looked out of place on his goofy face. I figure out the problem, Mizuki. I'm just too much man for one body. Gahibunsin no jutsu. The forest didn't just pop, it exploded in white smoke. When the haze cleared, every branch, every patch of grass, and every inch of the clearing was occupied by a Naruto. There were hundreds, no 1,000. Mizuki's jaw hit his chest. What is this? This, the 1,000 Narutos said, their voices a deafening roar, is the beginning of my collection. They descended on Mizuki like a golden tide. It wasn't a fight, it was a rhythmic, chaotic beatdown. Naruto watched from the back, noticing something strange. As his clones landed punches, he felt their impact. As one was poofed by a stray kunai, a rush of information, the feeling of the wind, the distance of the target, slammed into his brain. Information? Naruto thought, his eyes widening. If I pop a clone, I remember what it did. The new goal. After the dust settled and Mizuki was a bruised heap on the ground, Iruka handed Naruto his own forehead protector. Congratulations, Naruto. You graduate. Naruto tied the blue fabric around his head, feeling the cool metal against his skin. But he wasn't just thinking about being a genin anymore. He looked at the scroll, then at his hands. Iruka-sensei, Naruto said, helping his teacher up. How many kind of clones are there? You know, besides the crappy illusion ones and these shadow ones. Iruka blinked, wiping blood from his brow. Well, there are earth clones, water clones, even lightning clones used by high-level jonin. What? Naruto looked at the rising sun, a goofy, determined grin plastered on his face. Because I'm going to learn them all. Every single one. If I'm going to be Hokage, I shouldn't just be one guy. I should be an army. He realized that his weakness, his massive, uncontrollable chakra, was actually his greatest asset for this specific branch of jutsu. He wasn't a surgeon. He was a god of many bodies. I'm going to be the clone master. Believe it. Chapter 2. The Multiplication of Knowledge. The morning after the Mizuki incident, Naruto didn't wake up with his usual ramen-first mindset. Instead, he woke up with a headache that felt like 1,000 tiny hammers. The memory feedback from the night before, the sensation of being kicked, the smell of the damp earth, the sheer terror of Mizuki's giant shuriken, was still settling in his brain like silt in a pond. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and looked at the blue forehead protector on his bedside table. If I learn what they know, he whispered to the empty room, I'm not just one loser anymore. I'm an army of geniuses. The remedial training. Naruto didn't head to the academy for celebrations. Instead, he tracked down Iruka-sensei at a small training post. Irika was bandaged up, looking weary but smiling when he saw Naruto. Irika-sensei, I need to learn, Naruto blurted out, bowing so fast he nearly cracked his forehead on the floor. The real stuff. The stuff I slept through. I'm way behind Sasuke. And if I'm going to be a great ninja, I can't just be the guy who blows things up with clones. Irika blinked, surprised by the sudden spark of academic discipline. Naruto, that's a big mountain to climb in a few days. Why the rush? Because of the feedback, Naruto explained, his eyes bright. When my clones pop, I remember everything. If I make 20 clones and we all read a different page of a book, I read the whole book in a minute, right? Irika's jaw dropped. The implications were staggering. It was a training method that would kill a normal ninja from mental exhaustion. But Naruto had the chakra of a monster. All right, Irika said, a competitive fire igniting in him. Let's see if we can turn the dead last into a scholar. The Library of Orange. For the next few days, the village library saw a sight it would never forget. In a secluded corner, 10 Narutos sat in a circle, each hunched over a different scroll. Asterisk Naruto 1 was memorizing the history of the shinobi world. Asterisk Naruto 2 was sketching the anatomical points for chakra flow. Asterisk Naruto 3 was reading about basic trap making and wire setting. Asterisk Naruto 4 through 10 were outside, practicing the basic leaf concentration exercise to fix their atrocious chakra control. Every hour, the reading Narutos would dispel. The original Naruto would stumble, clutch his head, hiss through his teeth, and then scribble notes like a madman. Okay, so the first Hokage used with style, and chakra is made of physical and spiritual energy, and I've been using way too much physical energy because I'm always hyper. He was catching up. He wasn't just goofy Naruto anymore. He was becoming a Naruto who understood the why behind the how. He realized his failure with the basic clone jutsu was because his spiritual energy was a chaotic mess, while his physical energy was a literal ocean. The shadow clone worked because it let him just dump that ocean into a container. Team assignments. The new Naruto. By the day of team assignments, Naruto walked into the classroom with a strange aura of calm. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't pranking. When Naruto finally walked into the classroom, he wasn't his usual loud self. He was squinting, trying to process the simultaneous memories of 3 different breakfasts he'd sent clones to eat, ramen, toast, and a very questionable bug he'd dare a clone to try. Naruto, you're late, Irika scolded, though his eyes softened when he saw the forehead protector. Sorry, sensei. I was busy with a staff meeting, Naruto joked, sitting next to a brooding Sasuke Uchiha. A staff meeting? You don't have a staff, loser, Sasuke muttered, not looking up. Naruto grinned, a glint of genuine mischief in his eyes. Oh, you'd be surprised, Sasuke team. I'm a very busy man, very plural. Soon after, Naruto could be seen sitting with his eyes closed, mentally reviewing the substitution jutsu theory he'd mastered the night before and processing the memories of his clones. 2 blocks away, a Naruto clone was currently trying to read a textbook on chakra theory. In a nearby alley, another clone was attempting to stand on its hands. Poof! Naruto slightly jerked in his chair, his head snapping back. A sudden rush of knowledge, mostly the sensation of a sore wrist and the confusing definition of molding, slammed into his brain. Whoa, Naruto whispered, rubbing his temples. It's like a brain freeze, but with facts. This is cheating. I love it. Look at him, Ino whispered to Sakura. Is Naruto meditating? He's probably just asleep while mumbling nonsense, Sakura huffed, though she looked curious. Sasuke Uchiha didn't say a word, but his eyes flickered toward Naruto. The idiot felt different, dense. like there was more of him in the room than there should be. His voice clear and proud. As of today, you are all genin. You will be placed in three-man squads. Team 7, Sakura Haruno, Naruto Uzumaki. Sakura's head hit the desk with a thud. Naruto just gave a thumbs up to a clone he had hidden under the floorboards, who was currently practicing tying knots. And Sasuke Uchiha. Yes, Sakura shouted, suddenly revived. Naruto stood up, looking Sasuke dead in the eye. He didn't make a face or stick out his tongue. Naruto and Sasuke shared a look of mutual, intense annoyance. He just gave a small, confident smirk, and if his eyes could speak, Naruto told Sasuke with his eyes alone that he is going to surpass him soon. Sasuke decided to go back to brooding with an HN. Before looking away, Naruto thought to himself, I'm coming for that top spot, Sasuke, and I'm bringing 1,000 of me to do it. But Naruto's mind was already elsewhere. He was watching the way Sakura's hair moved, wondering if he could make a clone out of flower petals. Or maybe fire. Fire clone sounded awesome. The long wait. The teams were picked up one by one. Kurenai took Team 8. Asuma took Team 10. Soon, only Team 7 remained in the quiet classroom. He's late. Sakura complained for the 10th time. Naruto, do something. Why are you just sitting there? Naruto was currently balancing a kunai on his fingertip while 3 hidden clones in the ceiling rafters were practicing silent breathing. Relax, Sakura-chan. A ninja should use every moment of downtime to sharpen his tools. Since when did you become a philosopher? Sasuke snapped, his patience wearing thin. Since I realized I have to be 3 times as smart as you just to keep up with your ego, Naruto chirped, his goofy grin finally returning. Just then, the door slid open. A silver-haired ninja with a mask covering half his face and a headband tilted over one eye peered in. He looked lazy, bored, and remarkably unimpressed. My first impression of you guys. Kakashi Hatake drawled. Eyeing the eraser Naruto had actually avoided setting as a trap, deciding instead to place a small, invisible thread across the doorway that Kakashi had stepped over without effort. You're a bunch of interesting cases. Meet me on the roof. The rooftop gathering. The wind whipped across the academy roof as the 3 genin sat on the stone steps. Kakashi leaned against the railing, his single visible eye crinkling in a way that suggested a smile or a smirk. All right, Kakashi said. Let's start with introductions. Things you like, things you hate, dreams for the future, and hobbies. Things like that. Why don't you go first, Sensei? Sakura asked, so we can see how it's supposed to look. Me? I am Kakashi Hitaki. Things I like and things I hate. I don't feel like telling you that. My dreams for the future, never really thought about it. As for my hobbies, I have lots of hobbies. All we got was his name, Sakura, and Naruto thought in sync. Now, your turn. Kakashi pointed at the blonde. You first, Spiky. Naruto adjusted his forehead protector, his expression shifting from goofy to intensely serious. This was it, the moment he defined who he was going to be. Chapter 3, The Night of 100 Half-Steps. On the rooftop, Naruto stood up, his orange jumpsuit vibrant against the fading blue of the afternoon sky. He didn't just shout his name. He stood with a posture that Irika had taught him, feet shoulder-width apart, grounded. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, he declared, and for a second, the goofiness vanished. I like instant ramen, but I like the ramen Irika sensei buys me at Ichiraku's even more. I hate the 3 minutes you have to wait for the noodles to soak. But my dream... He looked at Sasuke, then at Kakashi. My dream is to master every clone jutsu in existence. I'm going to be the Hokage who could be in every house, on every wall, and in every shop at the same time. No one will ever be alone in this village again because I'll be there with them. Believe it. And my hobby is, well, I guess my hobby is US. Kakashi's visible eye widened slightly. It was a bizarre goal, but strangely profound. Most ninjas wanted to master powerful elemental attacks or complex illusions. Naruto wanted to multiply his presence. Then Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Us. Me and my clones. Naruto grinned, the serious mask breaking into a fox-like look of mischief. We play a lot of cards. I'm currently losing to myself. Sasuke let out a quiet HN, while Sakura looked confused. Kakashi, however, just closed his eye. Interesting. After Naruto's introduction, it was time for Sakura's introduction, which was mostly about Sasuke. Finally, it was Sasuke's time to brood and talk about revenge. Interesting, Kakashi said. Now that introductions are over, meet me at Training Ground 3 tomorrow at 5 a.m. Bring your ninja gear. And you might want to skip breakfast, or you'll throw up. Naruto's face crinkled in confusion. Sensei, what kind of training will we be doing tomorrow? He asked. Kakashi just smiled and said, You'll be fighting me. With a swirl of leaves, the Jonin vanished. The strategy session. The sun hadn't even fully set when Naruto cornered Sakura and Sasuke near the academy gate. Hey, we need to talk, Naruto said. He wasn't acting like the dead last. He had a scroll tucked under his arm and a look of intense calculation. Talk about what, Naruto? Sakura sighed, eyeing Sasuke, who was already walking away. Sensei told us to go home and rest. He told us to skip breakfast, so we'd be weak, Naruto countered, stopping Sasuke in his tracks. Think about it. Why would a teacher tell his students to be hungry? He wants us cranky and distracted. And he's a Jonin. If we go at him one-on-one, we're toast. I've been reading up. Jonin-level ninjas can take on dozens of genin without breaking a sweat. Sasuke turned around, his dark eyes narrowing. What are you suggesting, loser? I'm suggesting we don't play his game, Naruto said. I spent the last 3 days with Irika-sensei, catching up on the stuff I missed. One thing I learned, a mission fails when the team doesn't act like a team. I can make clones, a lot of them. If you two give me your best moves, I can provide the distraction. I don't need help from someone who just learned how to stand straight, Sasuke spat, though there was a flicker of curiosity in his gaze. He walked off into the shadows of the Uchiha district. Sakura followed him, giving Naruto a sympathetic but dismissive shrug. Sorry, Naruto. Sasuke-kun knows best. The multiplication of effort. Naruto stood alone in the street for a moment. Fine, he muttered. If they won't help, I'll just have to be my own team. He headed to the woods behind his apartment. Poof, poof, poof. 3 Narutos appeared. All right, listen up, the original said. We have 12 hours. One of you is going to the library. Sneak in if you have to. Find anything on Kakashi. I want to know his favorite food, his favorite moves, and why he's always late. On it, clone number 1 saluted and vanished. You, Naruto pointed to the second. You're going to practice the body replacement jutsu until you can do in your sleep. I saw Irika-sensei's notes. It's all about timing the switch with a puff of smoke. Go. Got it, boss. Clone number 2 sprinted toward the training logs. And you, Naruto looked at the third. We're going to work on the transformation jutsu. If I can make a shadow clone transform into something else before it's summoned, that's a game changer. The third clone nodded. Like a Fuma shuriken that turns back into me? That's sneaky. I like it. Midnight oil. While the rest of the village slept, Naruto's apartment was a hive of activity. The library clone popped around 11 p.m., sending a rush of information into Naruto's brain. Kakashi Hitaki, known as the man with 1,000 jutsus, has a Sharingan eye. Records show he has a 0% pass rate for Jinin teams. Naruto sat on his bed, sweating. 0%? He hasn't passed anyone, ever. He felt a wave of panic, but then he remembered the sensation of the scroll of seals. He remembered Irika's smile. He couldn't go back to being the demon fox boy in the dead last. If he has 1,000 jutsus, Naruto whispered, his eyes hardening, then I'll just have to have 1,000 Narutos. He spent the rest of the night practicing a very specific, goofy technique he'd been brainstorming, a way to use his clones as physical stepping stones in midair. He called it the Naruto Bridge. The midnight grind. That night, Naruto didn't sleep. He sat in his apartment with the lights dimmed, 3 clones sitting in a circle around him. Okay, listen up, the original Naruto said. The scroll said the shadow clone splits my chakra evenly. But if I use too much, I'll pass out. We need to figure out how to do more with less. Maybe we should try to change what we're made of, clone number 1 suggested. Shadows are cool, but what if someone hits us with a flashlight? I don't think that's how it works, clone number 2 said, scratching its head. But what if we tried to use the environment? Like, what if I was made of paper? Naruto's eyes lit up. Paper clones. We could hide in a library. We'd be invisible. He spent the night trying to mold his chakra into different shapes. He failed miserably. Every time he tried to add a property to his clones, they just turned into vibrating blobs of orange chakra. It's not working. Naruto groaned at 3 a.m. I have the quantity, but I don't have the quality. Wait, he thought. If I can't change the clone yet, I'll change the tactic. 4:30 a.m., the morning of the test. Naruto stood in the center of his room. He ignored Kakashi's advice. He ate a small, energy-packed protein bar and drank a glass of water. A hungry ninja is a stupid ninja, he reminded himself, a piece of advice he'd read in a tactical manual his clone had found. He arrived at the training ground exactly at 5 a.m. Sasuke and Sakura were already there, looking pale and exhausted from lack of food. You're late, Sasuke muttered. Actually, I'm right on time, Naruto said. He looked at his teammates. Look, I know you guys don't trust me, but I've spent all night researching this guy. He's never passed a team. Not once. If we don't work together, we're going back to the academy. Sakura looked at him, her stomach growling loudly. A 0% pass rate? Are you serious? Dead serious, Naruto said, pulling a small wire and some bells out of his pouch. Not the real bells, but props he'd made to practice. He's going to test our coordination. My clones can cover the field, but I need your precision, Sasuke. And Sakura, you're the best at chakra control. We need you to spot his traps. Before Sasuke could argue, a puff of smoke appeared on a nearby post. Kakashi was there, reading his little orange book. Yo, Kakashi said, not looking up. Good morning. Ready to begin. Naruto didn't yell. He didn't jump. He just slid into a low stance, his hand already forming the cross sign. Behind his back, he signaled to a clone hidden in the bushes. The test hadn't even started, but Naruto Uzumaki already had 3 versions of himself ready to die for the win. Chapter 4. The Multiplication of a Team. Kakashi Hatake stood atop the wooden post, his slouch making him look more like a bored civilian than an elite shinobi. He pulled out a small, silver alarm clock and set it on the post. It's set for noon, Kakashi said lazily, dangling 2 silver bells between his fingers. The chime of the metal was sharp in the morning air. Your goal is to take these bells from me. Those who don't have a bell by noon get tied to those stumps over there. I'll eat my lunch in front of you, and then you'll be sent back to the academy. Sakura paled, and Sasuke's jaw tightened. They hadn't eaten, just as ordered, except for Naruto, who felt the steady burn of the protein bar he'd shared with a hidden clone earlier to test his digestion. You can use any tool, including shuriken. Come at me with the intent to kill, or you won't stand a chance, Kakashi added. Ready and go. The tactical spread. Sakura and Sasuke vanished instantly. Naruto, however, stayed right where he was. He didn't charge like a fool. He closed his eyes for a split second, feeling the connection to the 3 scout clones he had positioned in the Trillion an hour before the sun came up. Feedback received. Sensei is staying grounded. He's not reaching for a weapon. He's reaching for a book? You're an odd one, Naruto, Kakashi said, opening Aika Paradise. Aren't you going to hide? Hey, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto said, his hands in his pockets. You said come at me with the intent to kill, right? That's right. Good. Naruto flashed a peace sign. Because I brought friends. I'm not the one you should be looking for. With a thunderous pop, the clearing was flooded. This wasn't the chaotic mob from the Mizuki fight. 20 Narutos appeared in a V formation, their eyes sharp, their stances low. Forward group, suppress. Naruto yelled. 5 clones lunged. Kakashi didn't even look up from his book. He dodged a punch by an inch, parried a kick with his elbow, and used his substitution to swap with a log when 2 clones tried to tackle his waist. Poof, poof. The original Naruto, standing at the back, felt the rush of information. He moves his weight to his heels when he's about to substitute. He's not using his hands to fight. He's using his feet to gauge the ground's vibration. The bell test. Quantity is quality. The clearing didn't just fill with smoke, it became a solid wall of it. When it cleared, Kakashi was surrounded. There were Narutos in the trees, Narutos underwater in the creek, Narutos hanging upside down from the bridge. 100, Kakashi muttered, his eye narrowing. At your level, you should be dead from chakra exhaustion. I've got a lot of heart, sensei, the army yelled in unison. The Naruto storm began. It wasn't just a mindless charge. While 40 clones rushed Kakashi in a chaotic dogpile, 10 more were digging tunnels underground. Another 20 were weaving together a Naruto net, holding each other's ankles to swing a single Naruto like a flail. Kakashi was forced to put his book away. He moved like lightning, popping clones left and right, but for every one he popped, the original Naruto, who was actually hiding in a hole 10 feet away, would just summon 2 more. He's using the feedback, Kakashi realized as he parried a kick. Every time I pop a clone, the others adjust. They're learning my movement patterns in real time. The trap. Gotcha! A Naruto yelled, grabbing Kakashi's leg from underground. Kakashi used a substitution jutsu, replacing himself with a log, but as he appeared 10 feet away, he found himself face to face with a Naruto who wasn't attacking. This Naruto was just staring. What are you doing? Kakashi asked. Learning, the Naruto said, then poof. The real Naruto, hidden in the bushes, felt a surge of adrenaline. He'd seen it. He'd seen the way Kakashi's hands move for the substitution. Sakura, Sasuke, Naruto yelled across the field. Stop trying to be cool and help me. He's too fast for one person, but he can't fight a whole village. For the first time, the individualist Team 7 began to see the logic. Naruto wasn't just a teammate. He was a battlefield utility. Sakura, now, Naruto screamed. The team strategy. From the bushes, Sakura threw a volley of kunai. Kakashi tilted his head, letting them whistle past, but the kunai were attached to nearly invisible tripwires. Naruto's clones grabbed the wires from the other side, creating a temporary web of steel to box Kakashi in. He's trapped, Sakura cheered. Not yet, Naruto warned. Sasuke erupted from the canopy above, his hands a blur. Fire style, great fireball jutsu. A massive sphere of flame consumed the space where Kakashi stood. The heat was intense, singing the grass. But when the smoke cleared, the wires were empty. Kakashi was gone. Underground, the original Naruto shouted, sensing the displacement of Earth through a clone he had buried earlier as a sensor. The ground beneath Sasuke exploded. Kakashi's hand reached up to grab Sasuke's ankle, but the Sasuke he grabbed vanished in a puff of smoke. It was a Naruto clone transformed into Sasuke. What? Kakashi muttered, his first sign of genuine surprise. The swarm intelligence. The real Sasuke appeared behind Kakashi, launching a barrage of shuriken. Meanwhile, Naruto's clones began a relay. They didn't just attack, they threw each other. One Naruto would grab another's arms and centrifugal force him toward Kakashi like a living mace. Kakashi was forced to put his book away. He was moving like a blur now, popping clones left and right. But for every clone he popped, the original Naruto, who was directing from the edge of the clearing, learned another piece of Kakashi's rhythm. He uses a body flicker to travel short distances. His left side is slightly more guarded than his right. The bells. Naruto signaled. A group of 10 clones formed a human ladder, catapulting the real Naruto toward Kakashi's belt. Naruto's fingers brushed the cold silver of the bells. The chime rang out. But the last microsecond, Kakashi's hand clamped onto Naruto's wrist. The result. The alarm clock blared. Noon. The clearing was a mess of scorched earth and popped smoke. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura stood together, panting, covered in dirt and sweat. Naruto's wrist was red where Kakashi had held him. "You three," Kakashi said, looking at the two bells still hanging from his hip. He looked at the scorched grass, then at the clever wirework Naruto had directed. "You didn't get the bells." Naruto slumped, his goofy grin replaced by a look of crushing defeat. I thought we had the timing right." "You did," Kakashi said. "In fact, you're the first team that actually worked as a single unit." "Naruto, your use of clones as a sensory network is something I've only seen from seasoned scouts. And Sasuke, you actually followed a loser's plan." Sasuke looked away, huffing. "It was a logical plan. That's all." Kakashi smiled, or at least as I crinkled. "You pass. All of you. In the ninja world, those who break the rules are scum. But those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. You coordinated. You shared your goals. You're a team." Naruto let out a yell of pure joy, jumping into the air. I knew it. One step closer to being the Hokage and mastering the clone technique. "Don't get ahead of yourself," Kakashi laughed. "Tomorrow, we start our first mission. Should be a walk in the park." "Oh, and Naruto, keep working on those clones. You might be onto something," remarked Kakashi. Naruto grinned, a tired but triumphant look on his face. He had been so close. Next time, he thought, I'm going to make a clone that can't be caught. As Naruto looked at his hands, a fire in his eyes. He had tasted the feedback of a Jonin-level fight. Now, he wanted more. He wanted to see what happened when his clones weren't just made of smoke, but of the very elements themselves. Chapter 5. The One-Man Village. The weeks following the bell test were not filled with the heroic battles Naruto had imagined. There were no rogue ninjas to defeat, no secret scrolls to recover, and certainly no damsels to rescue. Instead, there was Tora. "Target has moved to point B." Sasuke's voice crackled over the wireless radio, sounding profoundly annoyed. "I'm in position," Sakura whispered from behind a bush. "Naruto, what's your status?" Kakashi asked, leaning against a tree several yards away, lazily turning a page of his book. "Status is, we have the perimeter locked down," Sensei Naruto's voice replied. Suddenly, A streak of ginger fur bolted across the clearing. It was Tora, the wife of the Fire Lord's favorite cat, and the bane of every genin's existence. The cat was fast, mean, and possessed a supernatural ability to evade capture. Now, the original Naruto yelled. 7 Narutos erupted from the underbrush. They didn't just chase the cat. They formed a physical funnel. 2 clones linked arms to block a hole in a fence, while another 3 performed a synchronized leapfrog to cut off the cat's path to the trees. Tora hissed, finding herself surrounded by a wall of orange jumpsuits. Gotcha. The real Naruto scooped up the screeching ball of fur, ignoring the claws digging into his cheeks. Mission accomplished. Believe it. The efficiency of the multitude. Over the next few days, Team 7 was assigned a grueling rotation of D-rank missions, pulling weeds for the elderly, painting fences, and cleaning the village's cluttered drainage canals. While Sasuke brooded and Sakura complained about the grime on her gloves, Naruto was vibrating with a different kind of energy. He had realized something during the canal cleaning mission. "Why are you 3 standing around?" The original Naruto asked his teammates, leaning on a shovel. "We're not standing around. Naruto, we're exhausted." Sakura snapped, wiping sweat from her brow. "But I'm not," Naruto said with a goofy grin. He pointed toward the other end of the canal. There were 20 Narutos working in a perfect assembly line. 5 were dredging the mud, 5 were scrubbing the stone walls, 5 were hauling the waste away in buckets, and 5 were quality control, inspecting the work with comical intensity. "I've already finished 3 blocks of the canal," Naruto explained. "And while they're working, I'm over here practicing my leaf balancing." He tapped his forehead, where a small green leaf was stuck perfectly in place. Sasuke watched the clones. Each one moved with a distinct purpose. They weren't just copies, they were a workforce. "You're using them to bypass the physical fatigue," Sasuke muttered, his eyes narrowing. "But the mental strain should be killing you when they dispel." "It's a huge headache," Naruto admitted, rubbing his temples. "But the more I do it, the bigger my brain muscles get. It's like training my mind to hold more than one thought at a time." The epiphany. The turning point came during a particularly tedious mission, weeding the massive herb gardens of the Leaf Hospital. The task was estimated to take a full team of genin 3 days. Kakashi sat on the garden wall, watching his students. Sakura was carefully identifying weeds, and Sasuke was pulling them with a cold, efficient fury. Naruto, however, walked to the center of the field and took a deep breath. "Hey, Sensei," Naruto yelled. "If I finish this whole field in an hour, can we go get ramen?" "An hour? That's impossible, Naruto," Kakashi said without looking up from his book. "Watch me." Multi-shadow clone jutsu. 100 Narutos appeared. They didn't just start pulling weeds, they organized. Some clones were designated as transporters, some as pluckers, and some as soil smoothers. As the hour passed, the garden transformed. The weeds vanished as if by magic. Kakashi finally put his book away, his single eye wide. He wasn't looking at the garden. He was looking at the original Naruto, who was sitting under a tree, calmly eating a snack while his army did the work of 30 men. The realization. As the sun began to set, the team gathered at the gate. Naruto snapped his fingers, and 100 clones vanished in a massive cloud of smoke. Naruto staggered for a second, a wave of weed-pulling memories hitting him all at once, but he stayed upright. "I just realized something, Kakashi-sensei," Naruto said, his voice surprisingly quiet. "What's that?" "I don't actually need to be here for Duranks," Naruto said, a spark of genuine intelligence in his eyes. "I could send 10 clones to paint the fence, 10 to find the cat, and 10 to clean the park. all at the same time, while I stay at the training ground and actually learn how to fight. He looked at his hands. If he could do 3 missions at once, he could earn 3 times the money, gain 3 times the experience, and free up his real self to surpass Sasuke in half the time. I'm not just a ninja. Naruto grinned, the goofy, ambitious light returning to his face. I'm a local economy. I'm going to be a one-man village before I even hit Chunin. Kakashi looked at the blonde boy, realizing that Naruto wasn't just goofy anymore. He was beginning to understand the true power of the jutsu he had stolen. He wasn't just multiplying his body, he was multiplying time itself. Chapter 6: The Threshold of Orange and Red. The following morning, the Hidden Leaf Village witnessed a phenomenon that would later be whispered about in the Chunin staff rooms as the Orange Plague. At 8 a.m., 5 separate Narutos reported to the mission desk. Uzumaki Naruto, reporting for the grocery delivery for the elderly, said the first. Uzumaki Naruto, here for the roof shingling in the East District, said the second. Uzumaki Naruto, ready to scrub the Hokage monument's ears, chirped the third. The Chunin behind the desk stared, his pen hovering over the ledger. You're all the same person. We're a franchise, the fourth Naruto shouted, giving a thumbs up. While his employees fanned out across the village to earn enough Ryo to keep Ichiraka Ramen in business for a decade, the real Naruto was nowhere near the mission sites. He was deep in Training Ground 7, standing on the surface of a pond. The grinding gears of progress. Naruto's feet dipped beneath the surface, ripples spreading out from his sandals. He was practicing the water surface walking exercise. To his left, 5 clones were doing the same. To his right, another 5 were attempting to climb trees using only their feet. Focus, focus, Naruto muttered, sweat dripping from his chin. If the grocery clone pops, I need to make sure I don't lose my balance when the memory of discount radishes hits me. Poof. Suddenly, a rush of information slammed into his brain. The weight of a heavy grocery bag, the smell of mothballs, and the specific layout of an old woman's kitchen. The original Naruto wobbled, his chakra flared, and he fell face first into the pond with a loud splash. Gah, radishes. Why did it have to be radishes? He sputtered, surfacing and shaking his head like a wet dog. But as he climbed back onto the water, he noticed something. His feet stayed on the surface more easily this time. The muscle memory of the clone that had been walking through the village streets had stabilized his own chakra control. It works, he whispered, a manic, goofy grin spreading across his face. I'm training while I'm working. I'm living 2 lives at once. The Uchiha Shadow. Sasuke Uchiha stood in the shadows of the surrounding trees, his arms crossed. He had been watching for an hour. He had seen Naruto fall 30 times, but he had also seen Naruto's progress accelerate at a terrifying, unnatural rate. In a single morning, Naruto had achieved a level of chakra stability that should have taken weeks of dedicated practice. What are you doing, Naruto? Sasuke asked, stepping into the light. His voice was cold, but there was a sharp edge of frustration beneath it. Naruto jumped, nearly falling into the water again. Whoa, Sasuke team, don't sneak up on a guy when he's busy being an army. You're cheating, Sasuke spat, his dark eyes fixed on the clones. The shadow clone is a tactical diversion. You're using it to bypass the limits of a human body. It's disrespectful to the art of shinobi training. Naruto hopped off the water and landed on the grass, wiping his brow. He didn't look offended. He looked pityingly at Sasuke. Disrespectful? Sasuke, I spent my whole life being told I was a failure because I couldn't do things the right way. So I found my way. He walked up to Sasuke, his goofy expression softening into something uncharacteristically serious. I have more chakra than I know what to do with, but I'm not as smart as you. I don't have those fancy eyes. So if I want to catch up, I have to live 10 days for every 1 day you live. I'm not cheating the art, I'm mastering the math. The spark of rivalry. Sasuke's hand tightened into a fist. He thought of his own training, the hours of lonely practice in the Uchiha compound, the repetitive fireballs until his throat burned. He was the genius, and yet the dead last was currently outworking him by a factor of 10. The air in Training Ground 7 was thick with the scent of pine and the ionizing hum of Naruto's burgeoning chakra. Sasuke stood 20 paces away, his frame tense, his fingers twitching toward his weapon pouch. He didn't have the legendary eyes of his clan yet, but his reflexes were already honed to a razor's edge. You think a few D-rank chores make you a warrior, Naruto? Sasuke's voice was like ice. Quantity doesn't replace quality. I'll show you the difference. Naruto's grin widened, stretching from ear to ear. You want to fight an army, Sasuke? I hope you brought a lot of energy, because I'm feeling like a lot of me today. Naruto slammed his hands together. Kakebunsin no jutsu. The training ground erupted in smoke. But this time, when the smoke cleared, the clones weren't just standing around. They were positioned in a complex, interlocking formation Naruto had designed while his library clone had been studying military history. Formation Delta, the Narutos yelled. Sasuke lunged forward, a kunai in hand. He expected a disorganized swarm. Instead, he met a rotating shield of bodies. When he struck one, two more were already moving to flank him. They weren't just attacking, they were learning him. Each time Sasuke moved, the clones adjusted their stance based on the feedback of the previous popped version. He's getting faster mid-fight, Sasuke realized, his heart hammering against his ribs. 10 Narutos appeared, but they didn't rush in. They fanned out, encircling Sasuke in a crescent moon formation. The dance of the dozen. Go, the original yelled. 3 clones lunged from the front, while 2 more leap high, coming down with overhead kicks. Sasuke's movement was a blur of efficiency. He ducked under a punch, swept the legs of another clone, and used a backflip to kick a third in the chin. Poof, poof, poof. White smoke filled the air, but the remaining clones didn't hesitate. One Naruto slid across the grass, grabbing Sasuke's ankle. Sasuke hissed, plunging a kunai into the clone's back, but as it vanished, another Naruto was already there, throwing a heavy roundhouse. Sasuke parried, but he was forced back. He's not just swinging. Sasuke realized, his breath hitching. Each time I pop one, the next one is already countering the move I just used to kill its predecessor. Naruto was feeding his clones into the meat grinder of Sasuke's defense just to download his patterns. The awakening. Is that all you've got? Uchiha, a Naruto shouted, coming from the left. Sasuke felt a surge of white-hot frustration. His pride, his lineage, his obsession with surpassing his brother, it all boiled over. He was being pushed back by the dead last. His vision began to pulse with a rhythmic, painful heat. Shut up, Sasuke roared. He dodged a lunging Naruto, but the clone's fingers grazed his cheek, drawing a thin line of blood. For Sasuke, the world suddenly slowed. The fluttering of a bird's wings in the distance sounded like slow-motion thunder. The chaotic movements of the Narutos began to leave faint, purple after-images in the air. In the center of Sasuke's dark irises, a single red tomo swirled into existence. The Sharingan. The next Naruto lunged, but to Sasuke, the boy looked like he was moving through molasses. Sasuke didn't just parry. He moved with surgical precision, striking the clone's pressure point and sending it into a puff of smoke before it could even blink. What? The original Naruto gasped, watching from the pond. Sasuke, your eyes. Sasuke didn't answer. He became a ghost. He tore through the remaining clones like a scythe through wheat. He wasn't guessing anymore. He was predicting. Every twitch of a Naruto's shoulder told him exactly where the punch was going. Within seconds, the clearing was empty of clones, leaving only the original Naruto standing on the water. The trap is sprung. Sasuke blurred across the grass, appearing instantly in front of Naruto. He landed a brutal three-hit combo, gut, chest, chin, sending Naruto flying backward toward the tree line. It's over, Sasuke said, his red eyes glowing with a terrifying intensity. I can see everything now. Naruto crashed into the dirt, coughing. But as Sasuke stepped forward to finish the fight, he felt a tug at his waist. He looked down. A thin, nearly invisible wire was wrapped around his belt, connected to the very tree Naruto had just hit. Gotcha, Naruto croaked, a bloody, goofy grin on his face. Suddenly, the Naruto on the ground turned into a log. The real Naruto erupted from the soil beneath Sasuke's feet, a tunnel he dug with clones 10 minutes ago. He grabbed Sasuke's wrists, pinning them behind his back, while 4 other Narutos leaped from the canopy above, their weights slamming into Sasuke to keep him pinned. I knew I couldn't beat those eyes in a fair fight, Naruto yelled, his face inches from Sasuke's. So I made you focus on the me you wanted to see. The mental collapse and the limit of the mind. For a heartbeat, Naruto had him. The elite was trapped by the failure. But then the world tilted. The 3 clones holding Sasuke's legs suddenly shuddered. Miles away in the village, the grocery clone had just finished its task and dispelled. In the East District, the roofing clone had slipped and popped. A tidal wave of exhaustion, mundane memories of shingle nailing, and the sharp, piercing visual data of a Sharingan fight all crashed into Naruto's brain at once. It was a sensory overload that no human mind was meant to handle. "Ark!" Naruto screamed, his grip slackening. His brain couldn't prioritize the fight data over the roofing data. His nervous system short-circuited. Every single clone on the field vanished in a massive, simultaneous explosion of smoke. Naruto fell forward, his forehead thumping against Sasuke's chest before he slid down into the dirt, clutching his temples and groaning in agony. Sasuke stood there, gasping for air, his Sharingan slowly fading back to black. "Naruto?" Sasuke asked, a rare note of concern in his voice. Naruto looked up, a single thread of blood running from his nose. He gave a weak, shaky thumbs up. I think I just learned how to cook a radish while doing a fireball and painting a fence." While laying in the dirt, he began, laughing hysterically despite the pain. Note to self, don't dispel the cleaning clones and the fighting clones at the same time. It's a real headache, believe it. Sasuke stood over him, looking down at his trembling hands, then at the unconscious boy at his feet. He had won, but only because Naruto's own power had betrayed him. "You idiot," Sasuke whispered, his voice shaking. "You almost had me." For the first time, he didn't see a loser. He saw a threat. Chapter 7. The Partition and the Price. The morning dew was still wet on the grass when Kakashi Ataki arrived at Training Ground 7. He expected to find his students practicing their fundamentals. Instead, he found a scene of absolute exhaustion. Sasuke was slumped against a tree, his breath ragged, staring at his trembling hands. Naruto was face down in the dirt, his body twitching occasionally as his brain tried to sort through the chaotic mess of plural memories he had absorbed. "Well," Kakashi sighed, closing his book. "I suppose I should be impressed you both survived the night. The mind as a library. Kakashi hauled Naruto up by his collar and propped him against the same tree as Sasuke. Once Naruto stopped seeing triple, the Jonin knelt before them. Naruto, you're trying to run a marathon with 1,000 legs that don't talk to each other, Kakashi said sternly. You've discovered the shortcut to mastery, but if you don't learn mental partitioning, you're going to burn your brain out before you ever reach Chunin. It felt like a lightning bolt made of radishes and kanai. Naruto groaned, rubbing his temples. That's because you're receiving raw data, Kakashi explained. You need to learn to label your clones before you send them out. Think of your mind like a library. Right now, you're just throwing books onto the floor. You need to build shelves. Kakashi spent the next few hours teaching Naruto a meditative technique. He had Naruto summon only 3 clones, but with a twist, each clone had to focus on a completely different sense. One could only listen, one could only smell, one could only see. When they dispelled, Naruto had to consciously open the drawer for each sense one at a time. It's like sorting my laundry. Naruto chirped, his goofy grin returning as he successfully processed a bird song without getting dizzy. The Sharingan's trap. Then, Kakashi turned to Sasuke. The Uchiha boy looked expectant, his fingers itching to reactivate the red glow in his eyes. And you, Kakashi said, his voice dropping an octave. The Sharingan is a gift, but it's also a crutch. If you rely on those eyes to predict everything, your muscles will become lazy. You'll stop reading the rhythm of the fight and only react to the vision of a strike. Sasuke scowled. No, Kakashi countered. It helped you see them. You almost lost because you were so focused on the images that you missed the trap under your feet. A true Uchiha masters the body first, using the eye only as a confirmation. Kakashi pulled out 2 training weights. For the next week, no Sharingan. I want you to fight Naruto's clones with your eyes closed, using only the sound of the wind and the displacement of air. If you can't feel the intent of a punch, the Sharingan is just a pretty light in the dark. The new routine. For the rest of the week, the training ground became a laboratory of focused chaos. Asterisk Naruto worked on his shelf method, sending clones to do D-rank missions while he sat in silence. Practice processing the memories in small, controlled bursts. He was becoming a manager of his own power. Asterisk Sasuke was blindfolded, surrounded by 4 of Naruto's clones. He had to learn a dodge based on the scuff of a sandal or the whistle of a fist. At first, he was beaten black and blue, but by the 3rd day, he was moving with a fluid, haunting grace that didn't require a single drop of chakra in his eyes. You're getting better, team, Naruto shouted, watching a blindfolded Sasuke duck under a clone's kick. Shut up and send more, Sasuke replied, a small, competitive smirk tugging at his lips. The solo army grows. By Friday, Naruto had mastered the art of delayed feedback. He could now keep 10 clones working across the village and wait to absorb their memories until he was sitting comfortably at Ichiraka Ramen. Araka-sensei is going to be so proud, Naruto told a clone that was currently polishing his boots. I'm earning so much money from D-ranks. I could buy the large bowl every night. Don't get cocky. The original Naruto scolded himself. We still haven't mastered an elemental clone yet. We're still just made of smoke and mirrors. Kakashi watched them from a distance, a sense of pride, and perhaps a bit of worry, filling him. He had 2 students who were effectively overclocking their natural talents. They're ready for something more than cats and fences, Kakashi whispered to himself. He pulled a scroll from his vest, a request for a bridge builder escort in the land of waves. Let's see if their new coordination holds up when the blood is real. Chapter 8. The Weight of the Hat. The Hokage's office was thick with the scent of old parchment and Hiruzen Sarutobi's pipe tobacco. The third Hokage leaned back in his chair, peering through a cloud of smoke at the silver-haired Jonin standing before him. "You're asking for an early advancement to C rank, Kakashi?" Hiruzen asked, his voice gravelly but observant. "Usually, you prefer to linger in the D rank doldrums to test a team's patience. Why the rush?" Kakashi shifted his weight, his lone visible eye reflecting a rare seriousness. "It's not a rush, Lord Hokage. It's an adjustment to reality. My team is overclocking. If I keep them pulling weeds, they're going to start redesigning the village's infrastructure just to keep from being bored. Naruto is currently running a multi-site labor operation, and Sasuke has already awakened his Sharingan and mastered blind tactics." Hiruzen's eyebrows shot up. The Sharingan already? And Naruto, he's managing the feedback. "He's built a filing cabinet in his head, sir, and soon it will be a full-blown library at the rate he's going," Kakashi replied with a dry chuckle. "He's goofy as ever, but his efficiency is terrifying. They don't need more practice. They need a mission with stakes." The audience with the team. "Very well," Hiruzen said, tapping his pipe against an ashtray. "Bring them in." The door slid open, and Team 7 marched in. Sakura looked nervous, clutching her strap. Sasuke walked with a measured, silent grace, his gaze fixed forward. And Naruto? Naruto entered with two clones flanking him, one carrying his spare gear and another leafing through a book on basic trap disarming. "Hey, Gramps," Naruto shouted, ignoring the protocol as usual. "We're here for the real deal, right? No more cats. I've caught Tora so many times she actually purrs when she sees me now. It's embarrassing." The Hokage looked at the three of them. He saw the way Sasuke and Naruto stood, not as rivals trying to outshine each other, but as two sides of a sharpened blade. He saw the filing cabinet Kakashi mentioned. Naruto wasn't vibrating with chaotic energy. He was focused. "You believe you are ready to leave the safety of these walls?" Hiruzen asked, his gaze lingering on Naruto. C-rank missions involve travel. There's the possibility of combat with bandits or low-level mercenaries. "We're ready," Sasuke said, his voice steady. "We've trained for more than just bandits." "Believe it," Naruto added, his clones nodding in perfect, eerie unison. "I've got scouts ready to go. We'll have the perimeter mapped out before we even cross the border." Enter the client. Hiruzen sighed, a small smile playing on his lips. "Very well. Bring in the client." The door opened again, and a man smelling heavily of sake and sea salt stumbled in. Tazuna, the master bridge builder, looked at the trio of children with a skeptical, bloodshot eye. "What is this?" Tazuna growled, taking a long swig from his bottle. "A bunch of brats? Especially the short one with the stupid face. You're supposed to protect me." Naruto's clones immediately stepped forward, one pointing at Tazuna's sandals and the other at his flask. "Listen, old man," the real Naruto said, crossing his arms. "The short one has 100 eyes and can be in 10 places at once. If you fall over because you're too drunk, my clones will catch you before you hit the dirt. You're in good hands." Tazuna blinked, surprised by the kid's confidence. Kakashi stepped forward, placing a hand on Naruto's head. "They may look like brats, but they're my brats. We'll get you to the land of waves." The departure. An hour later, the team stood at the gates of the Hidden Leaf. Naruto stood at the front, but he wasn't just standing. He had already dispatched 4 ghost scouts, clones instructed to stay 200 yards ahead in the canopy, moving in total silence. "All right, Team 7, Kakashi said, adjusting his pack. "Keep your eyes open. Naruto, maintain the perimeter." "On it, sensei," Naruto yelled. As they began the long walk down the dirt path, Sasuke noticed something. Naruto wasn't talking as much. He was squinting slightly, his mind processing the visual data from the four scouts ahead. See anything? Sasuke asked quietly. Not yet, Naruto whispered. Just birds and wait. Naruto's eyes widened. 200 yards ahead, his scout clone had just spotted a puddle in the middle of a dry road. A puddle on a day where it hadn't rained in weeks. Sensei, Naruto said, his goofy voice replaced by a sharp, urgent tone. We've got a leak in the road ahead. 2 of them. Kakashi's eye crinkled. The boys spotted the demon brothers before we even reached them. Positions, Kakashi commanded. The mission to the land of waves had truly begun, and Naruto's army was already sounding the alarm. Chapter 9. The Puddle and the Pier. The road to the land of waves was deceptively peaceful, but for Naruto, the world was a high-definition split screen. Through his own eyes, he saw the dusty path. Through the eyes of 2 ghost scouts fanning out in the trees, he saw the flickering shadows of the canopy. Hey, Sensei, Naruto whispered, his voice dropping its usual boisterous tone. The leak I mentioned? My scouts are right on top of it. It's definitely not rainwater. It hasn't rained in weeks, and the puddle has a weird, oily sheen. Kakashi didn't turn his head, but his posture sharpened. Good eyes, Naruto. Everyone, keep moving as if you haven't noticed. Sasuke, guard the left. Sakura, stay on Tazuna. Sakura gripped her kunai, her heart hammering. She looked at Naruto, who was squinting as he managed his scout network, and then at Sasuke, who was already calculating his opening move. When did they get so far ahead? Sakura thought, a cold knot forming in her stomach. I'm just walking. The ambush. They passed the puddle. For a heartbeat, there was only the sound of Tazuna's heavy breathing. Then the water exploded. 2 figures, the demon brothers of the hidden mist, erupted from the ground. A jagged, spiked chain stretched between them. They moved with terrifying speed, wrapping the chain around Kakashi and shredding him into bloody chunks. One down, they hissed. Kakashi Sensei. Sakura screamed, frozen in horror. But Naruto didn't scream. He didn't even flinch. Substitution, he muttered. Now! Before the brothers could turn toward Tazuna, for Naruto's dropped from the trees, his hidden scouts springing the counter trap. At the same time, Sasuke leaped into the air, pinning the brothers' chain to a tree with a well-placed shuriken. What? The brothers gasped. They lunged for Tazuna, but Sasuke was a blur, landing a double kick that sent them reeling. Kakashi suddenly appeared behind the assassins, his arms wrapped around their necks in a cold, efficient lock. High-level Chunin, Kakashi said calmly. Targeting a bridge builder? This mission just got a lot more complicated. The crossing and the gap. By the time they reached the coast and boarded a small skiff to cross the fog-shrouded sea, the atmosphere was heavy. To avoid missed patrols, the motor was cut, and the boat drifted silently through the white haze. Hey team, Naruto whispered to Sasuke, gesturing to the rolling waves. Think you can handle a little extra credit? Without a word, both boys stepped off the side of the boat. Tazuna gasped, but they didn't sink. They stood on the surface of the rolling ocean. Their training, Kakashi explained to the startled bridge builder. The sea is harder than a pond. The tide pulls at your chakra constantly. They're testing who can maintain focus longest while the boat moves away. Sasuke stood like a statue, his eyes closed, his breathing rhythmic. Naruto, however, was doing it the hard way. He had 2 clones standing next to him, and they were playing a high-speed game of rock, paper, scissors. If I lose focus, I sink, Naruto grunted, his feet splashing as a wave hit his ankles. If the clones lose focus, they pop, and the memory of losing hits me like a brick. It's triple the concentration. Sakura sat in the boat, watching them. The mist swirled around the 2 boys, making them look like seasoned warriors. They were standing on the ocean, defying gravity and nature, while she was just sitting on a wooden bench, clutching her knees. I'm the only one who can't do it, she realized. Naruto is managing three brains at once on the water. The Demon of the Mist. The boat hit the pier of a dark, impoverished land. As they stepped onto the wood, Naruto dispelled his clones and swayed, his face pale from the mental drain. Whoa, the ocean's got a lot of data, Naruto muttered, rubbing his temples. Quiet, Sasuke hissed. Suddenly, the air grew heavy, cold and thick with killing intent. A massive blade, the Kubikurabocho, came spinning through the fog like a giant's propeller. Get down, Kakashi roared. The blade slammed into a tree, and a man appeared standing on the handle. Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the mist. He didn't even look at the genin. His gaze was locked entirely on Kakashi. Kakashi of his Sharingan, Zabuza rasped through his bandages. I didn't expect to see you here. Hand over the old man, and maybe I'll let the brats live. Kakashi reached for his headband, sliding it up to reveal the crimson Sharingan. I'm afraid I can't do that, Zabuza. These brats are my team. Zabuza let out a low, guttural laugh. Then I'll start with the legend. In a flash of movement, Zabuza vanished into the mist. Hidden mist jutsu, Kakashi warned, sliding into a defensive stance. Stay near to Zuna. Naruto, Sasuke, protect Sakura and the client. This one is mine. Naruto formed the cross sign, his goofy smile completely gone. He knew his shadow clones were just smoke against a man like Zabuza, but he wasn't going to let his sensei fight alone. Chapter 10. The Mist and the Mirror. The fog didn't just roll in, it breathed. It was thick, cold, and carried the metallic tang of blood. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura stood in a defensive triangle around Tazuna, their weapons trembling in their hands. 8 points. Zabuza's voice echoed, seemingly coming from the very air itself. Larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys, heart. Which should I choose? The killing intent was a physical weight. Naruto felt his lungs seize. Beside him, Sasuke was shaking so violently his kunai rattled against his holster. Even with his recent training, the sheer, murderous pressure of a world-class assassin was different from a spar. Sasuke gripped the hilt of his blade, his knuckles white, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Sasuke, Kakashi's voice cut through the dread, calm and steady. Don't worry, I'll protect you with my life. I won't allow my comrades to die. The water prison. The battle erupted in a blur. Kakashi and Zabuza clashed with a violence that shook the pier. Naruto watched, his eyes wide, trying to track the movements. He saw his sensei copy the mist demon's movements perfectly, the Sharingan spinning in a frantic dance. But Zabuza was a master of deception. Fool, the real Zabuza whispered, emerging from the water behind Kakashi. With a swift motion, the water rose up, swirling into a sphere that encased Kakashi. Water prison jutsu. Sensei, Sakura screamed. Run! Kakashi shouted from within the sphere, his voice muffled by the water. He can't move as long as he keeps his hand in this prison. Take Tazuna and go. The coordinated gamble. Naruto looked at the water clone Zabuza had sent toward them. The clone stood with a terrifying smirk, his hand resting on the hilt of his giant blade. Naruto felt the familiar spike of fear, the urge to bolt, but then he remembered the filing cabinet. If I run, I'm just one kid, Naruto thought. If I fight, I'm an army. Sasuke. Naruto hissed, his goofy bravado replaced by a sharp, desperate focus. He's a water clone, He's only 1/10 the strength of the original. We can do this. Sasuke glanced at Naruto. The sight of the blonde boy standing his ground, hands already in the cross sign, broke the Uchiha's paralysis. What's the plan, loser? Formation windmill. Naruto yelled. Naruto summoned 20 clones. They didn't charge the water clone. They charged the original Zabuza holding the prison. Zabuza swatted them away like flies, but they kept coming, a relentless tide of orange. Useless! Zabuza roared, his water clones slashing through 3 Narutos at once. But the clones were a distraction. Behind the smoke of the popping clones, Sasuke launched a giant Fuma Shuriken. Zabuza caught it effortlessly, only to realize there was a second one hidden in its shadow. He leaped over it, but the second shuriken suddenly puffed into smoke. Kage Bunshin, transform! The shuriken turned back into Naruto, who was now midair behind Zabuza. Eat this, Naruto yelled, throwing a kunai directly at Zabuza's face. Zabuza was forced to pull his hand out of the water prison to dodge the strike. The sphere collapsed, and Kakashi fell to the ground, gasping for air. The tide turns. The moment Kakashi was free, the atmosphere shifted. The copy ninja rose, his Sharingan blazing with a cold, predatory light. Naruto, Sasuke, excellent work, Kakashi said. The ensuing battle was a masterclass in mimicry. Kakashi matched Zabuza's water dragon jutsu blow for blow. His movements so identical, it looked like Zabuza was fighting his own reflection. Finally, Kakashi slammed Zabuza against a tree, kunai at his throat. Before the finishing blow could land, 2 senbon needles whistled through the air, piercing Zabuza's neck. A masked boy, a hunter nin from the mist, appeared, claiming he had been tracking Zabuza and took the body away. The collapse. As the fog finally lifted, the adrenaline drained from the team. Kakashi took one step toward his students, then his eyes rolled back in his head. He collapsed into the grass, unconscious from chakra exhaustion. Sensei, Sakura cried, rushing to his side. Naruto sat down hard on the dirt, his head spinning. The feedback from the clones that had been popped by Zabuza was hitting him, each one a memory of the terrifying cold of the mist demon's blade. We actually did it, Naruto panted, looking at Sasuke. Sasuke didn't answer. He just looked at his hands, which were finally still. He looked at Naruto with a newfound, begrudging respect. Sanctuary. Tazuna led the weary team through the woods to a small, humble house on the coast. His daughter, Tsunami, helped them carry Kakashi inside. As the sun set over the land of waves, Naruto sat on the porch, staring at the ocean. He was tired, his brain felt like it had been through a blender, but he was alive. And for the first time, he realized that shadow clones weren't enough. Zabuza's water clone had been solid, liquid, and lethal all at once. I need to learn how to make my clones out of more than just air, Naruto whispered to the stars. Inside the house, Sakura watched over Kakashi, while Sasuke sat in the corner, brooding over the power he had witnessed. They had made it to the bridge builder's home, but the real test and the rematch was only just beginning. Chapter 11. The Green Spark and the Red Leak. The air inside Tazuna's house was thick with the scent of salt water and medicinal herbs. When a silver-haired jonin finally opened his eye, he found 3 anxious faces staring down at him. Sensei, you're awake. Sakura exhaled, her shoulders dropping in relief. I am, Kakashi rasped, sitting up slowly. He looked at Naruto and Sasuke, the man who took Zabuza's body away. He wasn't a hunter nin. He was an ally. He used senbon to trigger a state of false death. Zabuza will be back, and likely in a week's time. Kakashi sat propped up against the wall, his face pale but his lone eye sharp as he watched his students. Naruto and Sasuke were already bickering over the efficiency of their respective water walking styles, but Sakura sat in the corner, her hands gripping her skirt so tightly her knuckles were white. "Sensei," she whispered, her voice cracking the tension. "You said Zabuza is alive. You said we have a week." "That's right," Kakashi said. Sakura looked up, her eyes brimming with a mixture of shame and fury. "I'm useless. I watched you get captured. I watched Naruto and Sasuke invent a plan on the fly, while I just stood there. I have the best grades in the academy, but I'm falling behind so fast I can barely see their backs anymore. Please, don't let me be the damsel again." The room went silent. Naruto stopped his boasting, and even Sasuke looked away, uncomfortable with the raw honesty in her voice. Kakashi softened. "All right, Sakura. You have the most precise chakra control of the three. If you're willing to sweat, I'll show you how to turn that precision into a weapon." The climb and the flow. That afternoon, the clearing behind the house became a tiered training ground. "Tree climbing and water walking are the fundamentals of everything," Kakashi said. "Naruto and Sasuke learned it through trial and error, but Sakura, I want you to master the advanced flow. Don't just stick to the surface. I want you to feel the pulse of the tree, the vibration of the water." While Naruto and Sasuke watched in surprise, Sakura sprinted at a massive cedar. She didn't stumble. She didn't slip. She walked straight up the trunk, hanging upside down from a branch with a look of terrifying focus. Whoa, Naruto blinked. She's actually better at this than us. "Now, the water," Kakashi commanded. Sakura stepped onto the surface of a small pond. Unlike the boys who splashed and struggled to find the sweet spot, Sakura stood as if on solid glass. She didn't just stand, she began to move through a series of kata, her feet barely causing a ripple. "Control is your gift, Sakura," Kakashi noted. "Now, continue practicing your kata while walking on water with 4 leaves placed on your body. The first should be placed on your forehead, the second on your stomach, and the last 2 on the back of your hands. You don't have to use all 4 at first. Try building your way up to it." The visual test. Later that afternoon, Kakashi sat on a log in the clearing, still leaning on a crutch. He didn't have scrolls or special papers. He had the environment. In the hidden leaf, we usually use specialized paper to find your elemental nature, Kakashi explained. But we're in the field, so we're going to do this the old-fashioned way. Sasuke, activate your Sharingan. Sasuke's eyes bled into the crimson tomo. Naruto, I want you to mold your chakra as hard as you can. Don't just make a clone. Push your energy into the air around your hands, Kakashi commanded. Sasuke, tell me what the texture of his chakra looks like. Is it flowing like water? Is it flickering like fire? Is it sharp? Naruto grunted, his face turning red as he forced his chakra into his palms. Sasuke leaned in, his Sharingan spinning. He saw the blue swirls of Naruto's massive reserves, but then he noticed something peculiar. The chakra wasn't just swirling, it was jagged. It looked like tiny, microscopic blades vibrating at a frequency that made the very air around Naruto's fingers feel cold and thin. It's splitting, Sasuke whispered. "It's not smooth. It's like 1,000 tiny needles." "When?" Kakashi nodded. "Sharp and thin. Now, Sasuke, look at your own. Try to ignite the air." Sasuke focused. His chakra didn't split. It vibrated and expanded, heat and static radiating from his skin. Fire, and interestingly enough, lightning, Kakashi confirmed. The fire is standard for an Uchiha. A secondary chakra nature isn't usual for a genin. The coordinated masterclass and the red glint. "Sasuke," Kakashi said, his voice firm. "Use your eyes. Sasuke nodded, his eyes spinning into the red tomo as Kakashi vanished into a cloud of smoke. As Naruto began to focus, weaving the signs for a clone, Sasuke leaned in. Your flow is too jagged on the right side. Naruto, smooth it out. Sasuke stopped mid-sentence. Through the lens of the Sharingan, the world was usually a sea of blue spiritual energy. But deep within Naruto's gut, Sasuke saw something else. A leak, a bubbling, violent, crimson chakra was seeping into Naruto's blue stream. It felt heavy, malicious, and ancient. Naruto, what is that? Sasuke whispered, his Sharingan tracking the red threads as they coiled around Naruto's lungs. What's what? Naruto asked, sweating from the effort. I just feel hot, like my stomach is on fire. Sasuke's eyes widened. Don't let the red stuff touch the wind shards, Sasuke warned, his voice shaking. It'll blow your arms off. As Naruto began the process, creating a clone and trying to infuse it, Sasuke's Sharingan dove deeper into Naruto's core. Suddenly, Sasuke flinched. Deep within Naruto's navel, a separate, terrifying energy was pulsing. It wasn't the clean, sharp blue of the wind. It was a thick, bubbling crimson chakra. It looked like boiling oil, and it was beginning to leak into Naruto's blue streams. Naruto, stop! Sasuke shouted. What? I almost had it. Naruto panted, a clone half-formed and vibrating beside him. There's something red, Sasuke said, his voice trembling. It's leaking out of you. It's angry, Naruto. Every time you try to sharpen your chakra, that red stuff tries to drown it out. Naruto went quiet, his goofy expression replaced by a look of hollow recognition. He knew what that red energy was. Just tell me when it moves, Sasuke. If you can see it, maybe I can push it back. Sasuke realized then that Naruto's clumsiness wasn't lack of talent. It was a constant internal war. Fine. Focus on the vibration. When the red spikes, I'll call it out. We'll tune it together. Sakura's medial start. While the boys were locked in their struggle, Sakura stood before Kakashi. She felt like a ghost cowering behind 3 titans. Sensei, she whispered, her hands trembling. I have the best chakra control, but I'm the weakest one here. I don't want to just stand in front of Tazuna and scream. Please, help me find my place on this team. I don't want to be abandoned, and I don't want to be a burden to all of you. Kakashi looked at her. He saw the spark of a girl who was tired of being a spectator. You have a most delicate touch, Sakura. Combat might not be your path yet, but medical ninjutsu is. It's the hardest discipline to master because it requires absolute perfection. He showed her how to focus chakra into a soft, green glow. Kakashi brought her back over to the boys before resting inside. By being secluded, she had an easier time focusing, taking away that seclusion upped the difficulty. If Naruto hurts himself or Sasuke, she can heal them and train even more. For the rest of the week, while the boys shouted and clones exploded in gusts of wind, Sakura sat in the grass with a wounded bird she'd found. She didn't look at Sasuke. She didn't think about romance. She focused on the tiny, rhythmic beat of the bird's heart. By the 5th day, her hands glowed with a steady, emerald light, and the bird took flight. I'm not a burden anymore, she whispered, watching the boys train. I'm the one who's going to keep them alive. The synergy. For the rest of the week, the clearing was a symphony of effort. Asterisk Sakura sat in the center, her hands glowing with an emerald light, her focus so intense she didn't even hear the explosions. Asterisk Naruto summoned 5 clones, each one trying to vibrate their hands at the frequency Sasuke dictated. Asterisk Sasuke stood as the watcher, his Sharingan burning as he guided Naruto's wind while training his eyes and keeping the red at bay. A little more to the left, Naruto. The red is bubbling up near your chest. Sasuke shouted. I've got it. Wind style, sharp shadow clone. Naruto roared. By the end of the seventh day, Naruto's clones didn't just pop. They released a small, razor-sharp gust of wind. Sakura had successfully healed 3 different animals, and Sasuke had learned to read the intent of chakra before it even manifested. They weren't just a team of weak genin anymore. They were a family. Chapter 12: The Dinner and the Dagger. The 7 days of training had transformed the atmosphere of Tezuna's household. The air was no longer thick with just fear. It was charged with the quiet, focused energy of the 3 genin. That evening, Tsunami prepared a large meal of fish and rice. For the first time, the table was filled with the sound of clattering chopsticks. Naruto was shoveling rice into his mouth with the speed of 4 men, mostly because he had 2 clones sitting on the floor behind him, mentally reviewing the wind vibration patterns they'd practiced all day. "You eat like a pig, Naruto," Sasuke muttered, though he was eating with more intensity than usual himself. "I'm refueling the army team," Naruto muffled through a mouthful of rice. Suddenly, Inari, Tezuna's grandson, slammed his fists on the table. Tears streamed down his face. "Why do you even bother? Training, acting like heroes, it doesn't matter. Gato is too strong. You're all just going to die." The room went silent. Naruto slowed his chewing, looking at the boy. He saw the same hollow look he'd seen in the mirror for years. "Listen, kid," Naruto said, his voice unusually calm. "I've spent my whole life being told I'm a failure. But I found out that if you have enough of you, you can change anything. I'm not just one hero. I'm 1,000 chances to win. So stop crying and start watching." The encounter in the woods. The next morning, Naruto went into the woods alone to gather herbs for Sakura's medical practice. As he knelt by a patch of wild ginger, he noticed a figure in a pale kimono gathering herbs a few yards away. The person looked delicate, with long hair and a serene face. "Collecting herbs too?" the stranger asked. "Yeah," Naruto chirped, his goofy grin returning. "My friend is learning how to be a doctor ninja. She says these are good for bruising." They talked for a few minutes about the forest and strength. "Do you have someone precious to you?" the stranger asked. When a person is protecting something truly precious, they can become truly strong. "I do," Naruto said, thinking of Iruka and his team. "I'm going to protect them all. Believe it." As the stranger stood to leave, they paused. "By the way, I'm a boy." Naruto's jaw hit the forest floor. "No way. He's prettier than Sakura-chan." As the boy walked away, Naruto's Ghost Scout clone in the canopy above narrowed its eyes. "He's wearing the same sandals as that hunter Nin," the clone thought, sending the observation back to the original. Naruto's smile faltered. The enemy is watching. The bandit raid. The following morning, Kakashi, Naruto, and Sasuke headed for the bridge to protect Tezuna. Sakura stayed behind at the house to protect Tsunami and Inari, her hands still glowing faintly with residual healing chakra. An hour after the boys left, the front door was kicked off its hinges. 2 of Gato's elite samurai bandits stepped into the room, their blades drawn and wicked grins on their faces. "Tezuna's daughter and the brat," one growled. "Gato says you're coming with us." Inari shrieked, cowering behind a chair. But Sakura didn't scream. She stepped in front of Tsunami, her heart racing but her hands steady. "I'm a ninja of the hidden leaf," Sakura said, her voice hard. "And you're trespassing." One bandit laughed, lunging forward with a horizontal slash. Sakura didn't just dodge. She moved with the fluid, water-walking grace Kakashi had taught her. She ducked under the blade and slammed her palm into the bandit's chest. She didn't punch. She used a medical chakra burst. Instead of healing, She sent a chaotic jolt of energy into the man's respiratory system. He gasped, his lungs seizing as he collapsed, clutching his throat. "What did you do to him?" the second bandit roared. Suddenly, the window shattered. Two Narutos, clones he had left hidden in the rafters as a home guard, dropped down. "Formation, home security," the Narutos yelled. They didn't just fight, they used the environment. One clone grabbed a rug and yanked it out from under the bandit, while the other delivered a wind-infused kick to the man's temple. Within seconds, the two elite killers were hogtied in the middle of the kitchen. Sakura stood over them, her hands still glowing green. She looked at Inari, who was staring at her in awe. "See, Inari," Sakura said, wiping a bit of dust from her cheek. "Heroes don't just die, they show up. To the bridge." "We have to get to the bridge," Sakura said, grabbing her medical kit. "If they sent bandits here, the main attack is happening there." Sakura and the two Naruto clones sprinted toward the shore. In the distance, a massive wall of fog was beginning to swallow the half-finished bridge. The rematch had begun.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.